Hope you're not going to roast me because I cannot keep up with you. Go to school, become an engineer, join the family business. Senior Taporis because it's Bombay.
COVID-19, for example,
Like, what do I do? And then, but I see the time is 11:11, and I was like, okay, that. I mean, that's the same, but I couldn't think of anyone. My name is Devansh Javeri, and I have had the best time ever.
You're a chef.
I am a jack of many trades, master of some. So I'm a consulting chef. Which means I consult for brands, for restaurants that want to start off something or want to set up something. I have my own company. I also head a company called Hustle Food Private Limited. We have three brands. One is called Mafia Chef, India's first and only producer of an aged sriracha sauce. There's a second brand called the Senor Swankies. We do different, fast food like pizzas, burgers, and things like that.
If Mexican food comes to India, what do you think you might want to call it in a very India specific or like Bombay specific way? If you had to come up with a name for it.
For Tex-Mex food to come to India?
Yeah, because like it's its own desi Mexican. No, Tex-Mex is Texan Mexican.
Right. So I would I would call it because we just take it off from Senor Swankies. We call it Senor Taporis because it's Bombay,
I love
and
it.
it's Senor. So we'll put on little respect, Senor, and then we'll add Taporis. I think it's very essential Bombay.
I love it. Very, very cool. So Senor Tapori himself. Wow, this is quite the privilege.
And the third brand that we have is a brand called Local. So since I don't know if any of you know this or not, but I've been on keto for the past 3 years.
So I know this from seeing some of your Instagram posts, And for those of the viewers who want to follow you on Instagram, what's your handle, Devansh? How do they find you and how do they follow your journey?
It's Devansh Javeri, Devansh, Javeri, Javeri, and 1111. So 4 ones. Devansh Javeri. Because see, Devansh Javeri was taken. Devansh.Javeri was taken. And I was like, what do I do? And then, but I see the time is 11:11, and I was like, okay, this is the right there. So yeah, like I was saying, because I've lost a lot of weight, so I decided to start something that does with premium sugar-free stuff. And when you say sugar-free, we use only natural sweeteners, so no artificial sweeteners. So we do premium free-to-bar chocolates and premium ice creams under that. So these are the few of the things I do. Like I said, jack of many trades. So that's that.
Yeah, no, I understand. So sounds like not only do you consult for restaurants who want to start their own businesses, but you also lead this awesome, the only sriracha sauce actually in all of the country.
Right.
And then finally, of course, there is this local specialty. Sounds like premium brands for folks who want the goodies without all the carbs. This is very very cool. But so tell me, so this is a lot that you do. You really love food. It has something to do with how well your palate is developed. Usually that starts off as a child, where you're exposed to different kinds of, even if it is just grown up food. Where does that come for you? I'm just so curious to understand.
I like to eat, I like to cook, and I like to entertain. So these are the three pillars of my being. Yeah. So this is where it comes from. And I kind of, I started cooking basic things since I was very young, like 12, 13.
At 12 and 13, you have started to cook stuff.
Well, not just elaborate, but like basic stuff. Like for example, if it's Maggie, right? So if I'm cooking Maggie, I won't just have plain Maggie. I'll have to add something to it. And when I grew older, like when I was 17, 18, I started cooking a little bit more. So it was just basically just basic stuff then. And the real thing started when I went to the US. When I was 19, I went to the US to get an education. It was a different country. We had the cafeteria food and it was great. It was healthy. It was nutritious, but it was taste-wise, it wasn't there because, we are Indians and we don't have any taste buds from all the spices we eat. And, the thing is, I was just sick of using hot sauce and Tabasco on my food all the time. And I was like, no, I have to start cooking. So then every weekend, we had a kitchenette in our dorm and we started cooking. And it turned out that I was pretty good. And then every Saturday, I had friends tell me that, hey, why don't you cook? And I was like, okay, so they want me to cook. So maybe you can do the dishes, you can cut the onions, you can do this. And I'd like just pass out orders to everybody. You guys do this and I...
So you had your sous chefs on the side.
I had my sous chefs, I had my helpers then. And then people would agree, they would be like, okay. So they'd be like, okay, we'll do this, but you cook. So there is something here. And then I moved to LA, and that's when I really took it on, right? I'd go and work in restaurants over the weekend, and I'd learn more because that's what I wanted to do. That's how I got more professional into this, because I realized that I am pretty good at what I'm doing. If these guys want me to cook their food, if Americans want an Indian, and I was a very nerdy guy then. I mean, I still am, but I was much more nerdy. So they want a nerdy Indian guy to cook their food for them. There has to be something. I mean, not like I'm cooking dal chawal for them. I'm cooking their food. And I was like, okay, this is good. So that's how it all started.
This is so cool. So when you were 19 is when this whole thing began. I know it sounds like you started to already make your Maggie into your own when you were like 12 years old and 13 years old. But, when you go to the States, you're in a sense forced to cook your own meals eventually, and you turn briefly into this guy who would put Tabasco on fucking everything, and then you started to
everything.
It sounds like you actually made up your mind that this is what you wanted to do. You went to study mechanical engineering, and then you discovered food. I'm still wanting to understand, where did that come from? Because, like for the average 12-year-old Indian boy, going to the kitchen to cook Maggie or even like anything is not something that's considered quite typical, like growing up, who was the person that cooked, and like, were you involved in, like being told that this is what this tastes like and this is how this is chopped, and like, where did you learn those basic kinds of appreciation, I guess, from?
So my mom used to always cook, and we had some help to cook. I was never encouraged to cook more because my family is a steel family, and the goal was go to school, become an engineer, join the family business, do the whole steel thing that we are doing for generations. So I wasn't forced into it, but that was an unsaid thing that was expected from all the boys.
I understand.
Now the whole food industry has become very glamorous. The whole cooking part has become very glamorous. But in 2001, it wasn't. It wasn't. And if then I told my dad that, hey dad, I want to go to culinary school and become a chef, he'd be like, "Dafa ho jayega yahan se." You know what I mean? Like the Hindi movies. So I didn't say it. So the thing is, while I was in the US, I knew I had to go back and join the family business. But I was like, idhar hu to jitna keeda hai, let me remove my keeda from here and cook as much as I can, work in restaurants, and which is what I did. I worked in restaurants for years. So I had classes and exams during the week, and I had classes Monday through Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was working in the restaurant, and I didn't even get paid really most of the time or anything. But it was just so much fun, and I enjoyed it because I was creating. See, after all, it is a creative field, and yes, it is also a business field. You have to be a good administrator, but that is one part. The other leg is also creation. And I am a creative guy. So I think that's where it came from. That's where it stemmed from. I mean, there is a seed in all of us creative people that cannot be hidden. It has to grow whenever it has to grow.
It's true. No, that is such a beautiful story, Devansh. Thanks for sharing. And in fact, even when you started to talk about it, I love how you use the word creative when it comes to cooking as well, because that is what it is. So yes, there is a science. There is a chemistry to it, as well.
Yes.
But there's also an art side to it. And it's more than just the presentation and the visual elements are important, but there is something more that is beyond just the perfect recipe. So there is truly something artistic about the cooking, and you kind of not telling your parents and going and doing these things on the side is like what most artists will end up doing, because your parents want you to like earn a living, and artist banke thodi na anyone is going to make any money, so you go and do mics on the side or you sing on the side, and it's your whole secret thing. And I know you alluded to this as a bit of a joke, that dafa ho ja and all of that, but it is a pretty seriously scary kind of a phenomenon, if you come from a space where this is almost like a tacit understanding that, you are going to grow up and do this. This is what we have slogged our asses for. You had better continue. We are doing this for you only, and all of that stuff. Like, how do you deal with that? Do you remember? Because there's so many people out here right now who might be watching the show too, who is an artist. And there are things that you want to do. And like you were saying, and I love how you said it, that when there is that inside of you, it cannot be kept down. It is an acorn. It is going to turn into a ginormous oak at some point, or you're just going to be a very unhappy person,
Absolutely.
So these are it's almost like a cost-benefit analysis for personal happiness and fulfillment, that you end up making that decision to perhaps disappoint your parents, because otherwise you will be disappointing yourself for the rest of your life. How did you deal with, how did you reconcile those two? disappointing yourself versus potentially disappointing dad?
So when I came back in 2008 to India, I automatically joined my dad for a few years and, joined the family business. And then one day I woke up and like, dad, see, the money is good and everything. We have the family business set up and I don't have to do that much set it up. I mean, I have to work, but it's not where my heart is, it's not like I can go to bed, happy being, thinking that, hey, I'm doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
So since I was a little boy, I always wanted my own restaurant or to do something with food or just cook, just that's what I wanted to do. So in 2013 or 14, I told my dad, I think it was 14, I told my dad, hey, I think I'm out. I need to do my own thing. And so I had been saving up a little bit, but then my dad's like, okay, do what you got to do, but don't come to me for money to fund you. So he was like, I won't fund this, so do it on your own. I was like, okay, fortunately, I still had, a roof over my head and I was still living at home.
Yeah.
So food and all that was sorted. But I had to fund my own stuff that I wanted to do. And it started off with that first pop-up I did in Chennai. I made a decent amount of money over 5 days. I put that money back into the business. I kept cycling it over and over. And
nice.
Here we are today.
Cool.
Here we are today. So watch your finances. Don't spend on stupid shit. Trust me, it's very easy to get carried away. Like, hey, it's only $1,000. It's only $100. But that adds up when you are struggling to make it on your own. Every adds up. Just be judicious. Don't lose focus. Eyes on the prize, and if you're good, you will get there. There's no two ways about it.
That is really cool.
And so initially my dad was like, hey, so I won't fund you. And now my dad's like, hey, do you need funding? And I was like, no, thanks, Dad, I'm good. So when you want to create something, creation is the most beautiful thing that you can do. Whether it's create poetry, create humor, create art, food, or whatever. Because you're creating something, you're bringing something new into this world. You're giving people a new experience. You're opening up mental horizons for people. Art can help, with people suffering from depression, anxiety, mental disorders, whatever you want to call it. When you create something and you give it to the world, you actually help the person grow. So that is what I strictly believe. So never let that spark die. Do what it takes, but never let it die.
That's great advice, honestly, Devansh. And I also feel like it sounds like from what you're saying is that it wasn't as kabhi khushi kabhi gum, like your father's response. So it wasn't like, get out of my house and don't ever talk to me again and things like that. Of course, you have to do your work.
And I also lucked out, because I was still living at home then, and the thing is, I had a roof over my head. I had no bills to pay. I mean, I did have bills to pay in terms of work, but I didn't have many personal bills to pay. Like I had to pay for groceries, electricity,
lodging and boarding, electricity, all the basic things taken care of.
So I did luck out over there. But the thing is, not everybody does. And when that happens, if that happens, God forbid that happens, but find a friend, live with them, just do what you got to do. And also, don't do it before you finish your education. Finish your education, so at least you have a backbone, you have something to lean on. Because trust me, that is very, very important. Do not quit your education if you can. Don't quit that.
I'm hearing you say that an education is important, but I think more than just a backup, I think it gives you such a sense of feeling grounded that you have something. It is more the reassurance for yourself than actually something that might be something that you even use, because I think it's much more helpful knowing that in case something happens that you have an education, it's a slightly better place to be in than be like, you are like one unpad gawar person and now you want to do this and tera kuch nahi hoga.
Exactly.
You have things to say to yourself, because when people might be saying not such nice things to you, you can at least counter that with some nice things that you can say in your head. And you talked a lot about how art can help with mental health and things like that. And I believe that is true. How do you feel that your art, through the culinary arts, does that help for you as well? Does it take you to a healthier place?
Right, it does. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and tell you a little bit more about myself before I can segue into this question of yours. So I am also into a lot of spiritualism and spirituality. I've been so for a very long time. I'm a regular meditator. I meditate for an hour on waking and almost an hour before going to bed. I've been doing that for a while now. I'm an active Zen practitioner. I follow mindfulness, being in the present moment. So this being
One
said,
second.
helps me. Yes.
It's time to play a game. It's what we call
Okay.
ABC, and this is how it goes. ABC, 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 ABC. So this is not me giving galis to guests. This is not what I do. We're going to continue this conversation following the alphabet. So you were talking about where you come from on a spiritual space. So you can start off with D because that is what your name begins with. And here we go.
Devansh has to say that. I mean, that's safer. I couldn't think of anyone. So that yeah. So when you're cooking, there is a certain level of attention that is required, focus that is required, and meditation isn't just sitting cross-legged on the floor with incense and some kind of om in the back on
Everybody
loop.
seems to think that that's what it is, isn't
Not
it?
what it is. For instance, people think that meditation is stopping your thoughts. Meditation is not stopping your thoughts. Meditation is disidentification from your thoughts. I could be meditating while walking from my bedroom to my kitchen if I'm just in the present moment and if I'm not engrossed in my thoughts or being identified with my thoughts. So that is meditation as well. So that being said, when you're cooking, because your focus is on what you're doing, like for example, if I'm chopping something or if I'm cooking something, the smells, the aroma, the sights, the colors, everything is there, and you're so focused on everything. At least I am, that it is sort of like a meditation. It is therapeutic, and in the end, you create something. So it's fun while you do it, and it's fun once it's done.
Great.
हंस के पागल हो रहे हैं आप.
I crack myself up sometimes.
Just like I was saying earlier, anything can be a meditation. And let's say for someone like you who's a comic, you could be out on stage with like 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 people in front of you. You're in the zone. That is also meditation. When you live in the past, we are suffering from depression, and because what could have been, versus when you live in the future, we're suffering from anxiety because we don't know what's going to happen. The present moment is the only moment where we can be truly happy, and we cook only in the present moment. So that's my little philosophy behind that.
Knowing your own thoughts and knowing yourself and an overall sense of self-awareness, I believe, is really very, very critical. When we grow up, we're sent to school, we're taught all kinds of things like, what is the capital of which state and like how many rivers and all of that. Like, I don't believe any of those things are very important. But what is most important is just having a better understanding of yourself and being aware of your thoughts and how that might impact how you feel. And this whole cognitive behavioral stuff really talks so much about how your thoughts and your behaviors can inform each other to just really just live in the present. I think these are such cool things. We're going to end this ABC game, but this is such a cool discussion. I want to continue to have this discussion because it's something that is it's a buzzing topic. Now everyone's talking about mental health and this and that, and most people are just throwing around these buzzwords. It drives me mad. What do you do to keep yourself sane?
The most valuable lesson is mind your own business. I promise you, trust me, that works for me. It may sound a little crude and out there, but I promise you it works. What anybody else thinks about you or me or we, basically, or one, is none of your business. You know what I mean? Because everybody creates their own perception. And so what I do is I take that opportunity to first calm the fuck down, because if I were to lash out again, that would just start, something that doesn't need to be there.
What an interesting kind of discussion we found ourselves at. Let me ask you this. A lot of times when human beings, when we struggle and when we suffer, the tendency is to run away from suffering. But if you're able to find the strength to sit with the suffering, then there is, not to romanticize suffering or pain or depression at all. It is really painful. It is a lot of struggle. But sometimes that shapes people into who they are. Can you talk a little bit about some of these life experiences, perhaps, that shaped you?
Sure. Sure. So, first of all, I'm going to be speaking from a purely from a spiritual aspect point of view of this whole thing. And I know you're on the other side because you're a this professional. You studied this actually. I
Bottom
haven't
line,
studied,
I am a human
but
being capable of
right,
empathy. So regardless
right,
if your belief system is different from mine, I'm not
right,
instantly going to be dismissive of it. So everyone's
right.
experiences are completely valid, completely legit. So I want to hear about what yours is. It doesn't have to align perfectly with mine or the next person's or
Right.
anything.
So I've had multiple, and without going too much into too many personal details, because I've had a lot of experiences that have shaped me since the age of 23 or 24 up till I am 38. I just turned 38 last month. So I know getting old, but so uh, so. First of all, I personally believe this kind of growth, this kind of understanding, this kind of empathy towards another human being, this kind of identification of yourself in another can only and only come from some kind of suffering, some kind of hardships that you've gone through. And like you said, definitely not the romanticized form, something that happens to you against your will. And then there's a stage of acceptance when when I realized that, okay, so this is beyond my control.
Yeah.
It somehow gave me a sense of peace, like an immediate sense of peace for a second. Maybe it was temporary, but it gave me an understanding that this is out of my control. So when I reached that state of understanding, that is when things got a little easier. There's a lot of esoteric things that are thrown out. That, they say that, oh, we'll do this healing ritual. That's what I talk about healing. That
I
is
get it.
not required. Or I will do this energy work on you and you will be healed. That is what I mean when I say that. There is no, first of all, let me throw it out. There is no replacement for a licensed professional, licensed medical professional. There is absolutely no replacement for that. So if you think you can bypass a licensed medical professional and go get some energy work done, I'm sorry.
Do you
Yeah.
think there is a reason why people might avoid going to a professional and might actually find it a little bit more acceptable to go to some of these, let me heal
Yeah.
you, here's this energy and this whatever mumbo jumbo stuff, do you think there might be a reason for
It's
it?
because it's because of society and it's because of our culture. And I'll tell you why I think that is because when you have a cold or when you have a sore throat or even if you have a fever, uh, you
You
go
go to
to
the
a
doctor.
doctor. It's not a big deal. But when someone is suffering from any kind of mental illnesses, uh, everybody's made it so taboo, to go to a psychologist or psychiatrist to get some medical help. Why? It's the same thing. It's like a common cold or like a fever. If you can take medication for a fever, you can certainly take medication for mental health. There are antidepressants. There are people who can talk to, who can, who are trained to sort something out that you're suffering from. So that is also healing, but that's a different kind of healing. But what I'm talking about is, don't go to just energy healers, because there are people who are vultures out there who are sitting to prey on people. So that's what I mean by, that is what is going to be an issue.
That's exactly right. If you're not feeling so well physically,
Right.
or emotionally, or psychologically, we are, as human beings, we are more than just organs put together. We are our
Yeah.
thoughts, we are our
Yeah.
intellect, we are our bodies as
Yeah.
well. So everything, health is everything. So you
Right.
should see a doctor, just like you wouldn't go to an energy healer or whatever for, I don't know, if you had COVID-19, for example, So
Yeah.
you also want to see mental health as health. I think it is all health.
Absolutely.
And I think there is certainly, like what they want, like what you were saying, there is such a high risk that someone is going to take advantage of the stigma that is somehow imposed on mental health, and to just go in and just prey on the vulnerable folk who are already feeling not so well. But they're like,
Absolutely.
okay, give me your money, I'm going to fix you. And who doesn't want to be fixed? And it is false hope, and it is just false advertising.
Healing is the correct word to use, not fix you. They use the word healing. I'm telling you, that is why I dislike it, and that is why I had to say what I had to say, is because there's so many people just taking, just preying on the helpless, and this is a time when you don't want to prey on the helpless, because this mental health is your pillar of health. and which is why the whole healing lash out. But yeah,
no, and so, I completely understand where you're coming from, and I also feel quite similarly, because people are already in a vulnerable place, and when someone is so fragile, to take advantage of them is like some kind of a con job. I think it's morally reprehensible. It's just stuff that we shouldn't be doing to each other as human beings. And this goes back to empathy again. It goes back to being able to recognize what it is that you can offer to someone. And if someone is offering to somebody a way to just expand their own business, by come see me and I will heal you, and bring your friends along and make this into like a MLM kind of a scheme, it's just like quite ridiculous.
Also, what I wanted to add is that for any of the viewers that are watching this right now, if you think going to a licensed professional for your mental health is expensive, don't go out to drink, don't eat out for a couple of weeks or a week or whatever. Put that money in towards your mental health, because that is what is needed to actually survive in the world out there. Because what happens is that when you're not fully stable, and when you're up in your emotions and you're struggling with your emotions, you're struggling just to some days to get by, or even struggling to get out of bed, and then you're forced to get out of bed and go to work. When you're in that emotional state, there are a lot of decisions that you don't make correctly. I ended up doing things that was so out of character for me that I would not do it, if I was not going through all those things in life, So find somebody to talk to, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal, it happens all the time. If everybody got help with what they really needed help with, the world would be a much better place.
That's absolutely right, Devansh. And thanks for saying those words. Instead of teaching in schools, again, I keep going back, to the education system. So instead of teaching us about all of those capitals, and I also will talk about the capitals of all the states, because I couldn't ever remember all of those, but it would be so much nicer to teach, self-awareness and empathy. There's schools in Denmark, I believe, that actually have empathy classes from like kindergarten onwards. Did you know this?
Yeah. I think instead of learning stuff like limits, trigonometry, and calculus in school, we need to, so we had trig, we had calculus in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. But what is the point? Because I chose science and I became an engineer, but I have friends who chose arts, and they, you know what I mean? So a lot of these things don't need to be taught, like even in school. Why don't you teach us how to do our taxes? Because I still don't know how to do my taxes properly. I have to, hire a professional. How about, you teach us about life and teach us about other people, and, how about you teach us how to understand that the other person probably is going through a difficult time just as you are, and maybe, their behavior doesn't represent what they really feel inside. So how about teaching those things? These are the main life lessons. And how about teaching people how to cook? Just basic. No, I feel cooking, cleaning, and all these things are basic life skills that we never learn. And I'm not talking about cooking like an entire meal. At least a simple roti sabzi or that, just something that you can survive on, right? So you don't have to be dependent on, like earlier when restaurants were shut. I have a lot of friends who are single and don't know how to cook, and they're like, what do we do? So they're surviving on like Maggie and bread butter and stuff like that. And because many restaurants weren't delivering in the beginning, now they've started.
Yeah.
So again, if they were taught how to cook in school, just a basic meal, so, probably when you're older or even at home, mothers and parents, fathers, they think, "Arey, ladke kitchen mein nahi jayenge, to main to chalaga kitchen mein," So you know what I mean. So
I do.
These things, these are life skills, with empathy that need to be taught. And I think all these things tie in together at some point, because when you're doing your own chores or when you're doing your own things, and when you are empathizing with the person who would actually be doing them for you, right? So I feel indirectly it kind of ties into empathy, any life skill, and it is a basic survival skill. So so these things do need to be taught in school. So I think these things can really help build a child up. So these are just my views. I'm just throwing them on there because this is a good platform to have people know about these things. That's
we're just having conversation, and this is what conversations can be like sometimes. So this is all good. I do think that I agree with what you're saying, Devansh. That some of these life skills, and I think of it as life skills too, actually need to be taught in school and things like that. And perhaps it's nice, and it's almost it's great to have these kinds of conversations, because you'd be surprised there's so many people who believe exactly the same things, you know. And it's just that you know, sometimes we believe wrongly that we might be the only people that are thinking these thoughts. I think a lot of people watching might feel exactly the same, and it is these voices that must be heard too. You know, like there was this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King. Now I'm going to misquote this grandiosely, but in a sense, what he was saying was that the people who fight for peace must make as much of a noise as people who fight for war. You know, basically. So we're hearing all of these divisive kinds of discussions. I think it's these kinds of conversations that must be had in terms of normalizing differences, normalizing health issues, whether it is mental health or physical health or whatever, normalizing the need to reach out for help, just normalizing that it is okay, even if you're not like constantly on top of your A game, you know, and it is okay to want to do something that was perhaps not defined for you, you know, by your parents, and it is okay to do something on your own because that is what feels good to you, you know, at the end of it. And yes, sometimes there are going to be times of struggles, but of course there are also going to be those times that lead to feeling quite fulfilled. Do you feel fulfilled based on the life choices that you have made with what you do now? Are you here still?
Could you hear me?
No, I couldn't hear you. I think we got disconnected.
Yeah, it was stuck. It was stuck. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, to answer your question, I do feel very fulfilled with the life choices I have made. I have made them very carefully and not so impulsively. I realized what made me happy, and I put aside everything that did not make me happy. I dissociated. I disassociated. I dissociated myself with things that did not make me happy, and just went towards the stuff that made me happy. I didn't always. I mean, I knew that what the career choice I was making would be difficult, and I would not be making nearly the same amount of money that I was making earlier. But I am thankful for having every single experience I had, good or bad, because it has shaped me to what I am today. I don't know if I should say this, but I wouldn't change it, my experiences, but because it has made me what I am.
This is so cool. What a great conversation, from cooking to caring for self and for others as well. Thank you so much for being part of the best time ever.
I was just about to say, and this show is aptly named the best time ever because I had the best time ever on a Monday morning. So this is fantastic. What a way to start the week, and what a way to start Monday morning. So yay! I had a great time, and thanks again, Pooja, for having me on here, and thank you again for making the show so that a lot of people can. The thing is, most people that know me don't know this side of me. They only know me for what I do professionally. And I'd like to thank you for giving me the platform to speak about all of this, which is what is truly important underneath everything. This is the backbone of everything, and thank you so much for that.
Of course. No, I get that this is what drives you, and it clearly explains why you're able to have the continued passion for what you do. This couldn't come out of nowhere if this wasn't being propelled with all of this stuff. None of this would have happened. So this is, in a sense, who you are. Everything else is a symptom of who you are, you know, if you will. But this is the essence of Devansh. Thank you so much for being my guest. I've truly had the best time ever. Thank you.
My name is Devansh Javeri, and I am a businessman in the food industry. I am also a consulting chef, and I am a non-dualist, spiritualist, Zen practitioner, and I have had the best time ever. The present moment is the only moment where we can be truly happy, and we cook only in the present moment. So that's my little philosophy.
If you enjoyed this video, which I seriously hope you do, then don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you the next time. Bye.